So just to tell you a little bit about Embarc, we're here in Chicago. Our vision is that experiences are one of the most powerful elements that help people learn and make them who they are. And if our schools and education system are not implementing that, then we are failing our kids. And at the same time, isolation is one of the biggest challenges that we are facing in our country. And so if we can turn our schools and our education into an experiential one, we can not only change outcomes for kids, but we can also create a stronger collective social fabric. And as I think many of us Ashoka Fellows understand, when you're isolated from one another at the same time, that's the root of challenges with race, with hate, with violence, with poverty, with inequity, with unfair laws. And all of that comes from sources from people who don't share tables with people unlike themselves. And the more that can happen, the more the world will be able to build off of empathy and be able to care about other folks. So I was a teacher in the South Side, saw that kids hadn't seen the lake, been to the grocery store, and that was, in fact, more than just a physical manifestation. That was a very internalized sense of isolation and racism, and it sort of created a really fractured idea of the pathways to success, different avenues to achieve it, and the action steps that a person needs to take every day to get there. And once we started to take students on journeys all around the city, restaurants, theaters, universities, businesses, we saw a huge return on our investment in grades, test scores, attendance, and post-secondary aspirations. And Embarc now is a manifestation of that across 14, this fall, 18 schools, serving close to 900 students by August. And we're a 3-year intensive experiential education program that's integrated within a school. So kids go to math, they go to science, and they go to Embarc class, and that class is like this crazy thing where they have a whole bunch of people coming into the school all the time, and they get to go to a whole bunch of places and meet all these folks and be better understand that they're limitless and boundless, and to understand the action steps they need to take to achieve their dreams. So that's Embarc in a nutshell. But you can imagine, as you think about that, if you're going to turn a city into a giant classroom, you need a lot of doors open. You need to have a lot of relationships. You need to communicate with a lot of people. You need to build a strong enough brand awareness. And then you have to, of course, have a very strong board. So at this point, the cost per student is close to $1,800 per kid. So we raise all of that funds and don't ask our schools to contribute to that. They contribute in many other ways. So the budget currently is about $1.4 million. It's going to be at 1.7 probably by this fall. And progressively over the years, we have been increasing our budget by about 40%. And so we've seen huge jumps. 6 years ago, Embarc started. And for the first 3 years, the most money we had ever raised in a single year was $100,000. So basically, in 3 years since then, we went from 100. We went basically from like 150 to now 1.4 and going to be 1.7. So it requires a lot of coordination, as you can imagine. And so I wanted to share some of the tricks and tools that we have to sort of keep everything tight. So I want to warn everybody, I'm going to get super nerdy on this. This is like so nerdy. So we're going to get like nerdy as in like we're going to really get into the tools, the actual templates, the actual documents that you're able to pull up and show people, the actual things that you would use to help guide your own thinking, and then help other people understand what you're saying. And I think that it's going to kind of stay, I'm going to kind of stay a little bit away from anything that's not really grounded in a physical tool that you could use. But I am happy to talk about all of those things, so please interrupt me.
And I'll say too, this is like a really great compliment to the huddle that we had last week. And I think in that way, like there, and this is recorded, Bruce, and I can share with you, but just looking at the like two wings of the bird that is board management in this like deep relationship building, and weaving people into a shared vision that Sarah Heminger talked about last week with her work with Thread, and now Imran kind of marrying that with how do you actually operationalize that? How do you manage this living, breathing thing that is many humans working on the same thing? So Imran, be nerdy, dive into the tools, and we'll know that that's the focus and the angle that we'll take today. So,
what I want to start with, I think the beginning, and I think of one of the most important bases for having a strong board is being able to know that you can present them a very good snapshot of what it is you do and what it is you need from them and where the organization is, because that's the baseline of being able to have a really good board meeting. You want to have a really good board meeting before you have really good board members. You want to have the capacity to have a really good board meeting. Then you can bring on your stronger board candidates, and even the current board members will be like, oh wow, okay, now we kind of got our stuff going. We can be a little bit more ambitious about who we bring on. So I want to start with a tool, and it's really just our board presentation. So we have a board template, and the entire presentation is always following a similar format. And so there's a dashboard, a scorecard, and I'll sort of move you through that in just a second. I'm going to go ahead and pull up the screen share.
Yeah, great. And Imran, can you just give a high-level preview of the different tools that you're going to go through? So we know where the plane's flying.
Great. So what we're going to do is I'm going to start with the board presentation just so that everybody can see the template that we use for every board meeting. Then we'll move into a sort of overview of the life cycle of thinking about who you want on the board, and then all the way through being able to hold them accountable for what you need. So it'll be a quick outline. Then we'll dive deep into sort of what the organizational staff is held responsible for after a board member joins. And then we'll look at some stuff around like, how do you help other board members figure out who you need and how do you understand who you need? And then we'll look at board agreements, and then we'll look at board scorecards to hold people accountable. We'll end a little bit with the scorecard because that's really the end of the lifeline of a board member. And so once they're on, being able to keep them engaged, hold them accountable, and get what you need out of them.
Cool. All right. So we'll take the tour. Welcome, Cindy. You got here just in time for the exciting screen share.
Yes, I heard everything else by phone, and sorry I couldn't get to my computer sooner.
You're good. Welcome. And Imran, I'm gonna hold your nerdy deep dive to 20 minutes or so we make sure that or less if you
see my screen.
We'll just make sure to save a good bit of room for a conversation.
Can you see my screen?
We can.
All right. Okay. So I'm going to share all of these documents. Basically, here's the board meeting template. It starts with key accomplishments, hurdles, and key decisions. When you get into the agenda, you can sort of see that everything will sort of follow the same thing. And it always stays this way. The most important element here, I think, is to look at the bottom, and you want to be able to leverage your board to think about one key strategic question. So that allows them to go beyond just the numbers and all this, and get them to be able to really leverage their knowledge and their thought. And you could present that in the beginning. And notice here, of course, everyone's seen this, when you want them to talk, when you don't want them to talk, so that allows you to move through. And then you get into down here, right, when you get past the agenda in the dashboard overview, you move into just the scorecard. So you're able to look at program, organization, finance, and special projects or initiatives on the bottom. You can fill in any of these things however you sort of want it to be. But you want to be able to, I think a board member wants to be able to see red, yellow, green quickly. And what you want to do is, if you want to be able to have a board meeting in an hour and a half, which is what we do, you basically say, we expect everybody to be reading everything. We're going to focus on the yellows and the reds. during the board meeting. And when you do that, you sort of move through. You could celebrate any of the high greens, but for the most part, you kind of want to stick to the reds and the yellows. I will also say that right before I get into this thing, I always have something called a mission moment. And that's like, we have either some student speakers or we have something really cool, something like heartstringy that really gets them about to cry. And you want them about to cry about how amazing they are and the stuff they're doing and we're doing is, because then you're about to go in and go, we need more money, we need more this, we need to work on this, and you need to do X, Y, and Z, and here's where we are. So it gets all nitty gritty, but you want the real emotional buy-in right before. Then you move into the real nerdy stuff. Okay, so you can see this scorecard, and then it sort of moves through. Each slide then will pick one of the categories. And so notice that the first category here is program, but the first one I go to is initiatives because that's where the yellows are. So I focused right on the yellows, and you're able to say, okay, you can see our yellows here, and then now because there's a yellow on scale, the next slide moves into the scale. Overview, current status, next steps. You talk about this stuff. You can have a discussion depending on what you want from the board. You can see all of the slides for scaling up. Then the next initiative is a big thing we were talking about. Fundraising campaign, and then you can see basically the way this slide works as it moves through. So I don't want to dive too much because you'll be able to see this because this will depend differently for everybody. But the benefit here is that everything has a very consistent format. So the information that's on there can move quickly and has some level of consistency. The dashboard, I think, is one of the most important aspects here of this whole thing. That way everybody can see the score right away. Okay, any questions on this before I move? All right.
Imran, this is Bruce. I have just some basic questions. So are you on the board? Are you the board chair or are you just the staff?
No, I have a board chair. There's 7 board members now. We've gone to 3 different board transitions from founding board, then to the next step, and then brought in new people. And so we transitioned a couple of times, but now there's 7 members. You know, a partner at William Blair, our senior vice president, Leo Burnett, and an executive from Northwestern University, and a lot of folks like that.
Okay. And but are you putting together the dashboard, the documents, and managing the meeting, or is somebody on the board?
Yeah. So currently, you're right. I should mention that my development director is also a badass. So she helps with a lot of these documents I'm going to share. But I created this dashboard before she came. This whole thing before she came on with the help of one of our interns. Our intern was from Bain.
Cool. I like it a lot. And are all the board meetings the same? And do they all follow this basic structure?
All of them are the same, and they all follow the same basic structure. And the reason is because you want consistency. But the interesting thing is, like, you can change what you want to focus on. If you have an event coming up that pops into your initiatives, and that's like, you go hard on that stuff. But your board still has to have like a fiduciary responsibility plus all this other kind of stuff. So they want to be able to feel like they're still in the know and they're still holding you accountable.
Mm-hmm.
So basically before the board, I try to send this whole dashboard out 1 week in advance. And so I'm working on it. And so, like, I'll send the program team the top segment of the dashboard. Each of the different people, I'll send it and have them fill it out. And so, like, our finance team fills out the finance section, and my chief programming director will fill out the organizational part and the programming part. And then there'll be some holes left over, and I'll work on all of those as well.
And I think this is a good opportunity, since we are a small group, just to get a feel from Bruce and Cindy, who just, you know, the goal of this is always like, this is one way of, you know, everyone's board is going to look different, and there are some tools or ways of thinking that will make sense. This is all to start a conversation and to kickstart a larger like sharing of how people are running their boards. And so just in a headline or two, Bruce, Cindy, what does your board look like right now? Are you on it? How big is it? What is the kind of the panorama?
This is Bruce. I am not on the board. We have 7 executive board members who have fiduciary responsibility, and then we have 3 different advisory boards that are about another 60 people: a science advisory board, a business advisory board, and a young professionals advisory board.
Great.
Up until about a year and a half ago, even though I was not on the board, I was serving as the sort of ex officio board chair, and I was responsible for putting together everything around the board, and the board members just came. And over the last year and a half, we've tried empowering the board members to take responsibility for managing what the board is supposed to manage. And I think having a set of tools like this could make things easier for both the staff and the board as we try and do some of the same kinds of things that Imran's group is doing. You know, not the same because we have a different mission, but all these categories are really important.
Great.
Yeah, I have a co-founder, and so when I was executive director in the very beginning, I also chaired the board. As the board grew, we brought on a board member to chair, evolved a board member to the position of chair, and I functioned as staff and as board member as well. And then in my transition now off staff from ED role, I've transitioned back into the board chair role. So I've gotten to experience it from all angles. And I have found, it's interesting to hear what you're saying, Bruce, that it is a little bit harder for us to get the board to be active in developing agendas, developing tools. They like to react to what staff proposes, but aren't necessarily active in establishing these kinds of systems or, you know, thinking proactively about how we can run better meetings. And so now that I'm back in a board chair role, I'm able to kind of professionalize it a little bit. And I think it's really interesting to see, Imran, how you're streamlining a lot of this. I think that is really great because I think we are maybe working too hard every time it's time to discuss, you know, what are we going to talk about at this next board meeting? So I really appreciate seeing this template. Is this something that you'd be willing to share with us afterwards?
Yeah, I'll send it all over.
And so, and did you say that you're chairing your own board?
No, I'm not. But
Okay.
so I sort of, it's funny, you know, when you guys mentioned co-chairing, I think it kind of means like who's running the board meeting, basically. So I'm not officially on the board meeting, but I do present. Me and the board chair work on figuring out this kind of stuff, and me and the staff make sure we have this thing populated, and then we go through there and we talk about it, and then the board does it pretty much collaboratively. But yeah, most of this is on us because a lot of it is just sharing this information. The board will take the board chair's main role now, I think, is to really hold the rest of the board members and sort of like make sure the voting is happening, the decisions happening, and make sure everybody is pulling their weight. So she kind of, she and I are, we discuss this ahead of time, talk about what we're talking about, and then we say, okay, we're talking about the event. And she goes, all right, where are we with the board members? And I say, here's where we are. And then when we talk about this, she'll say, everybody needs to get their 20 tickets. Invite your people. Where are we on our sponsorships? Where are we on blah, 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 blah. So I do the kind of guiding us through where we are, and she does the kind of like.
Oh, you froze for a second.
Yeah, you froze.
Oh, I said
something.
I do the guiding, through where we are. She does the holding people accountable to get us where we need to go.
Awesome.
Great. And one other quick question, I don't want to get us too off task, but are you going to address committees today?
No, I wasn't planning on doing that.
Do you have a similar structure kind of established for setting committee agendas and running through committee meetings?
No, because we found that because we only have 7 board members and we have a 20-person auxiliary board and an advisory board, we sort of just make everything everyone's responsibility. And so our board is really just an executive board, and we don't have a non-executive board, so we don't use committee structures.
All right, Cindy, your next task is to find the Ashoka Fellow who will host a conversation about committees.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
Great.
That's perfect. Thanks everyone for, yeah, that was good. I feel oriented to the diversity of.
I'll keep going and interrupt me at any time. Okay. So you can sort of see here a basic quick look at how we think about board development. You've got your recruitment, you've got your cultivation, and then you go through your selection process. Then there's the onboarding and continuous engagement. So again, I'll share all of these, but this just helps us and the board understand that as we are growing and cultivating new board, and as we're looking for people, they need to know what kind of stuff are they looking for when they're thinking about a board member under recruitment. And then they need to know kind of what are our ideas about what are you doing from saying, I think this person could potentially be a good board member, to let's ask them, or let's have a conversation if they want to be on the board. Between that is sort of this, is the dating phase, right? So you have board member lunches, you have meet Embarc leadership, you have go on Embarc journeys with students, you have meet other board members, you have attend a fundraiser. And so this process will usually end up being anywhere from 6 months. Will end up being anywhere from 3 months to 6 months. Recently we had a board member get very close to selection, and then I had to have a very uncomfortable conversation with them about not coming on the board. And so we were working with them in different ways, and I just gave them different opportunities to participate, but not on the board. And then you see the onboarding, which is, I think, a key way, and we're going to go through a little of this onboarding stuff as well. And that means that you do this transfer of knowledge, you're able to bring them on, you're able to make sure they have everything they need, and then you get them a board mentor. And at that point, they're able to meet the expectations that you'll see on the scorecard. And that's all part of the engagement as well. Great. I'll keep moving. So now, once selection is done, this is a quick slide to sort of show once we go through the dating process and then they've joined the board, you have this within 1 month, their transference of knowledge stuff, share and review board manual, you've got the goal setting rubric, you've got some swag you want to give them, you assign their mentor, they're expected to have lunch with them. Within the next 2 months, they do this after they meet with their mentor. You can see, I won't read all the slides, but you can kind of see what happens in a meet with mentor. And then there's site visit within the 3 months. And then you move right into sort of engagement. So this slide is basically a deep dive into the onboarding right here. Great. Any thoughts, questions?
I'm just curious to learn more about the mentoring process. Are all board members committed to mentor another board member? How are those members selected, and how do you define that responsibility?
Yeah, so you ask, the expectation is the board all knows that they had a mentor when they came in, and that whoever is available to mentor the board. And we talk about the board member ahead of time and the potential board member when they're getting voted on, and we see who they might work with and for what reason. So if somebody's in marketing and they can be connected with someone from marketing. If someone is really in there because of their programmatic knowledge. They could be supported with someone who's in there for the programmatic knowledge. And the mentoring is really informal. It's like, have lunch, talk. You guys can meet separately and figure out basically how comfortable they are about the expectations and the raising the dollars and stuff like that. And you'll be able to see that we clearly define the expectations of each board member. So the mentoring really is just so that they can have conversations about what it means to be on the board from other board members, not just from us, and have a place where they're having those informal conversations. So if you see under Meet with Mentor, it's just informal coffee or lunch, address lingering questions, and then have that peer-to-peer relationship. So it's pretty informal. I think there's, we could formalize this, but again, there's also people are adults and have relationships. And so, yeah, I already feel like sometimes we get too prescriptive. Shall I keep going?
Yeah, keep going.
Okay. So you can get a quick glimpse. I have the entire board manual that I'll also share with you, but you can get a quick glimpse of what the manual has in it. If you can see, it's here. Can you guys can't see the camera for me, can you?
Yeah, we can see you and the.
It's actually, the board manual is right here, and it's just this is during the transference of knowledge. Everyone's there. It has all of these materials in it, which is basically all the hard info they need to know, plus deep dives into financials, some relevant event materials, and then the governance documents and the engagement and the scorecards. I want to show you the arc of the year, which is under, which is the last section here under board engagement, which is B. We'll look at A, B, and we'll look at C as well. So here's the arc of the year. And so this basically says a year in the life of a board member. So what are they doing in fall, winter, summer, and spring? Just a quick glance so they can understand where they are, what their expectations are, when are they raising money, and how, and where are they supposed to be. And I think it just makes it easy so that it gets it out of our head, gets it on paper, gets it in front of them. And then as you sort of look at this, once you go from the arc of the year, you can see the board member agreement. So our expectation is that each board member give or get $10,000. Our average board give or get right now is $25K. So nobody is giving nobody's giving it 10. Nobody's giving less than 18 currently. Give or get. So this is basically, everyone's seeing basic board member agreement. It's pretty simple. Responsibilities right here, fundraising, agency, engagement, sign right here, and so we can move forward. So you can see the fiscal here is 10,000 under fundraising, and then 1,000 for a year-end campaign as well. So it's basically about 11. So I'll move from here. And so what we found is that's great. You can have expectations, but you need to be able to provide a way that people can continue to sustain that. And
Can I ask a quick question, Imran? Can I?
Yeah, please.
I'm wondering if the give-get expectation was always there for your board. With our board, I think fundraising has become more important from board members, or giving has become more important as we have evolved as an organization. Earlier on, we needed a lot of experts on the board to lend credibility and help actually do the work of the organization. And I found that it can be difficult to evolve into more of a fundraising board. So I'm just wondering, I'm impressed that at the age of your organization that you've been able to be so, I guess, ambitious and clear about fundraising expectations for your board. And I'm wondering where that evolved from and if there was any pushback.
Yeah, we earlier on, we didn't have that. And then when we needed to move from the founding board to a more professional board, we started to have the conversations with everyone to say, look, it seems like we have to set a $10,000 give or get. And I know that we all know that needs to happen. And we also know that there are folks that are not comfortable with that. And that's the offline conversation you have with them. And that's when they are comfortably able to transition off the board. We memorialize them on our website as founding board members. And we say, hey, we're trying to go to 10,000. We need to dramatically increase our budget. And we want you to continue to stay involved. And we want to memorialize your support. But how do you feel about this 10,000? And they're like, oh, that's, it's a bit much. And so then that makes it just an easy, comfortable conversation. It's not comfortable. It's easier conversation. And then once that 10,000 comes in, whoever ends up staying or whoever's comfortable with that is good with it. And then you get to the point where you go later and it's like you're at 25 and the average board member isn't bringing in 25K and is not missing their board meetings and these kind of things. Then you can have a next conversation with, hey, you're bringing in 15, we need to move the give get to 20. And that's when the board will all agree that the give get could be moved to 20. And I think there's also an understanding that in certain cases, some board members have a really strong skill set in other ways. And so if they don't meet certain board expectations like that, the 10,000, I think just because you have that tool doesn't mean that you have to stick with it 100%. The board can all understand that a person, let's say, for example, you wanted to have a recent alumni on your board and they can't raise 10,000, but you may consider their value to be somewhere around that. And so the board can have an agreement on that and you can have somebody on there like that.
Do you have any members like that right now on your board, Imran? Or like more generally, how are you creating space for voice and decision from the groups that you're working with, from folks that you're working with?
Yeah, no, we don't have anybody like that on the board, but I think a lot of our decisions, a lot of the work we do, we have a lot of teachers and a lot of old teachers that are on the staff, teachers, and a lot of alumni and some alumni that work with us and our other folks here. So we get a lot of their voices in different places that are helping to guide what we do programmatically, but that's not necessarily a fiduciary sort of role. I think you can have a lot of guidance in what an organization is going to do and where it's going to go and how it thinks about growth and how it thinks about what kind of programs are relevant for students or for communities, but not necessarily, that doesn't necessarily, in our mind, mean that they need a board seat, because I think an org can listen in many, many ways to what's important. But so that's how we listen from our students and our teachers in our schools.
And sorry, just so as I'm hearing that and this, hasn't been something I've thought of just in, you see this sometimes with interviews with fellow candidates as far as like, well, what's your target audience and why isn't it bigger, right? And it's sort of, I think of Lennon Flowers, who is working, their primary focus with the dinner party is working with people who have experienced a loss, often the death of a family member or a close loved one. And right now she's sort of been like, she works mostly with millennials. And there were some hard conversations with people who, wanted her to expand that. And she said sort of, no, for right now, this is what we're doing. And I'm hearing in what you're saying with, just sometimes you need to make a decision. Like right now, our board needs to be focused on a fiduciary responsibility. Or right now, our board needs to be serving this. And just like that discernment and that loyalty to that role is something that, requires a discernment.
Yeah. I agree. And, you know, for us, we have a dramatic growth trajectory over the next few years. We have had and continue to have. And so that requires a lot of tough conversations, also requires a lot of dollars that need to be raised. And I'm not saying that you can't have an alumni on the board anyway. I'm saying there's a place for it, and you can change your expectations. And I think, you know, for everybody, they can make whatever they want. And you're right. You make a decision about who you want and how and what you need, and you go with it. I think the most important aspect for us is just to have the right kind of tools so that everybody understands the expectations, when, how much, and can be held accountable. So right here, you're going to see, can you guys see this? So right here, you see the board member responsibility scorecard. It's our template. So in here, you have fundraising, you have board organizational development, and you have board engagement. So I know some of the writing's kind of small, but under fundraising, you see event support, which is they get 1 sponsorship, they buy and sell 10 tickets, they make a gift personally to the silent auction, to the live ask. There's a year-end campaign here. There's a donor procurement. They get 3 additional high potential introductions, and then their give-get at 10K. And then on the bottom, I made sure to write here that the average give-get was 20K here, so that they knew. Then the board organization development, it has its board procurement, which means they need to be making 3 introductions so that we can have conversations with potential board members. And then under here, see if I can do something here. Yeah, there we go. 3 introductions, 3 corporate partners. So this is where programmatically, we also need a lot of introductions to businesses and corporations and theaters and things like that. So with the dollars, that's also the programmatic side that allows us to have more doors that we can open to send kids in. So we put that in here as well. And then you've got your basic meeting attendance, your fundraising event attendance, your student experience attendance. And all of this goes back, is tied to their board member agreement. And so what ends up happening is 3 times a year, this is basically 2 times a year, you do this in the beginning of the year with each board member. So you write in basically where they are, what their next steps are, what their goals are, and then you can put this on a status of red, yellow, green. And then in the middle of the year, you meet with them again, and then then the end of the year for a board member becomes their end of the year review, and then goal, review and goal setting. And so when you're thinking about these expectations, part of the goal, you could basically take this and and just empty it out for your goal setting, which is like, okay, so here's the target is 10,000, but last year you were able to bring in 28. What's your ambitious target this year? So the way we talk about it is like in the beginning of the year, set some sort of crazy goal. We always say, set a crazy goal for yourself and fall short of it, but don't fall below this. But you can fall short of a crazy goal. So one of our board members has a $250,000 goal. He hasn't gotten anywhere near that, but he has gotten to 50. And so that has been, that's very helpful. And as long as he's got a fire underneath him to be passionate, because people like to set their own goals and they like to try to break them. So it's just how people function, I think. Okay, I know we're short on time, so this is pretty much the last. That's the last tool. There's another one here which allows us to figure out. There's another one here that allows us to figure out what you have missing on your board, and that is when you're thinking about what kind of board member you need. So you can get there's all these tools on there that tell you what you're missing on your board, and you can figure that out. But this gives you a quick wisdom wired work wealth fit, and then you could target what you're missing and what you need on here. So the board knows you need these kind of things in your wisdom wired, work, wealth, and fit. Ask yourself which ones you have a lot of and which ones you're missing, right? So most of the time you're going to be missing the wealth part because you're going to always need the money. You're going to need a lot of the finances. If you don't, you're going to say, hey, we need cultural fit. So for us, we have a lot of marketing, a lot of nonprofit, a lot of finance expertise, but we're constantly looking at the rest of the block.
Great.
All right. That's I think most of everything.
And Imran, if you want to then stop screen sharing, we can
Yes.
move back to Brady Bunch.
There we go. Got it.
Hello, everyone. Awesome. Imran, thank you. That is a wealth. It's a full toolkit. The title is not deceiving. And I'm going to thank you and stop recording.